at that point, their receptivity is at their height. In the first 2 minutes when most salespeople make their pitch, receptivity is arguably at its lowest.
Welcome to Be Bold Branding, where we discuss the power of differentiating yourself through your own unique story and standout personal brand. Is selling an art or a science? Or perhaps both? Today's guest is Jake Stahl, a pioneer in conversational dynamics and a Fractional Chief Learning Officer who combines value-based selling with the latest in psychological techniques and neuro-linguistic programming. He's revolutionizing sales through his Adaptive Conversational Blueprint. Let's begin this conversation and find out how this works to forge profound connections with prospects.
Welcome to Be Bold Branding, Jake.
Thank you for having me. It's a true honor to be here.
So let's start with a little bit of background about you and how you first became interested in conversational techniques, like what brought us to this point.
It goes way back for me. I was raised in the generation when kids were to be seen and not heard. And my dad was a very prominent businessman. And he was in every club you can imagine, and he owned a store. So I sat in on hundreds of business and backroom conversations about business. And as I grew older, it just started to fascinate me quite a bit. What conversations worked, which ones didn't? What was the foundation of trust? And when I got into training and development, it got me even more. The question, how are you? We ask, how are you all the time, and yet we rarely mean it. And that kind of started my journey into this. And 6 countries and 10,000 plus people later, I'm still trying to pull this all together into something that makes sense.
That's great and impressive in the resume, and something that actually I am very excited about learning. I love all of our guests, but when Tanya told me that what you did, what your specialty was, I was like, yeah, this is going to be exciting, because I too believe that, conversation is powerful, and how people respond to you and trust you, and how quickly you can get that done. And we've probably never lived in a time where it's more important.
I agree. I think in this day and age where AI and marketing automation has come into play, it's more important than ever, especially with the messaging that you send out. Because AI will, in my opinion, not always be able to capture all of those idiosyncrasies that make a conversation important. And if it does, I think it's going to set us as humans back even further, because we're just going to let that do all the talking, and our conversations either with our significant other or a business person is going to degrade. So I agree. It's really important we take all this into account now.
I totally agree with what you're saying. And a lot of times people will ask us, because obviously we're in personal branding, and they'll ask us, hey, can't AI just build your brand for you? And can't AI do this? And I thought AI can do some things. And
Right.
So I'd be interested to know your thoughts on this a little bit later. But what we teach in terms of AI is super simple: garbage in, garbage out, gold in, gold out. Okay. And so we say, if you have the right starting points and you say, okay, I am this, I serve these people, I am unique in these ways, this is how I am qualified for what I do, and all of those things are really dialed in, and then you put that into AI and say, based on these things, give me this, then you're putting gold in, and you're most likely getting gold out, or at the very least, unrefined gold that then you have to go in and refine a little bit more. Put the heat to it a little bit more, right? Put it in your own words. But I think that has a lot to do with conversation too. It's like you just said, we ask everybody, how are you? I just did that not 3 minutes ago with somebody in the office. Hey, how are you today? Good. How are you? And I'm genuine. I really like this person, right? But I didn't stop and listen to any, she didn't expound upon it.
Exactly how she was.
I didn't expound upon it. It's very, it's just a typical introduction. So I just threw a lot at you there, Jake. But what are your thoughts on garbage in, garbage out, gold in, gold out?
I agree with you 100%. And I'll tell you just a little bit about that. It's funny because my wife and I were Christmas shopping this past season, and we walked by a guy, and our eyes met. And I nodded to him. I said, hey. And he said, fine, thanks. How are you? And I think we get to the point where even sometimes when we don't get garbage in, we do get garbage out. And to your point, I think we've been saying that in computer programming for ages, right? You put junk code in, you're going to get crappy results out. The gold part to me, though, is the part that we're not quite always getting as a human race, in that it's not just about conversation. It's about the quality. It's about the cadence. And it's easier than we think.
Yeah. You want to expand upon that? Like, give us some pointers. Like,
Sure.
what do you think? Where's a good starting point with that?
I think the starting point is to look at kids. Look at 2 5-year-olds conversing. That's my mom. Which one is yours? I like trucks. Do you like cars? I like black. What's your favorite color? It's a cadence that goes back and forth where the content isn't near as important as the interaction. So if we go back to how are you? Imagine if a person called you and said, Michael, I was looking so forward to this conversation. Thanks for picking up. Think about how differently you would respond versus hey, Michael, it's Jake. How are you?
Mm-hmm.
So we're breaking a conditioning. And if you look back in the psychology archives, you come up with a guy named B.F. Skinner, who said, if free will is an illusion, we're all just a product of preconditioned motions, stuff we did in the past that had a successful outcome. So we repeat it. And I think we do a lot of that in conversation. Great example is look at your cell phone. You see who's calling. And sometimes you get that person that you look and just go, I just don't have time for this. That's your preconditioning kicking in.
Right.
That's so true. If you can tell me how to avoid that, this episode is going to skyrocket, right?
Yeah, I'd be much wealthier than I am now.
But let's dig further, because this is fantastic. Like, so what about a pointer that builds rapport or trust? And okay, and then I have a second part of that question. Can that also be done in a voicemail that you leave that might solicit a better response than just not calling that person back?
Sure, let's unpack that a little bit. There's something I've taught over the years called the 2-10 rule. And the 2-10 rule basically says that for every 2 minutes of conversation, you should elicit an interaction. In other words, repeat something back they said or ask a question that gets them actively involved. And then every 10 minutes, you ask a broad question like, we've covered a lot in the past 10 minutes. Did I cover anything that wasn't clear? What did you think of what I said? So the 2-10 rule that I've developed basically puts police tape around the times you shouldn't go beyond in a conversation. For all it could be a 30-second 2-minute rule or a 1-minute 3-minute rule. But the idea is to get that cadence established with somebody else so they know that they're being seen and heard and that the conversation is two-way. Once you get beyond that point, the content is everything. And that gets kind of to your email question. One thing I advise all my clients is you can't use email for everything. You can't use direct messaging for everything. It depends on what you're talking about and how much you want to get across. I tell people a simple rule of thumb is unless you're giving explicit instructions, anything past 2 sentences shouldn't be an email or a DM. You should be talking live.
I like that.
Ooh, that's a great rule, actually.
I like that a lot. Yeah, because being in the sales business, I teach my agents, don't email, don't text. Those are follow-ups. Call, talk. You don't know what you don't know till you talk to the person.
Exactly.
But I'm so in love with what you're talking about. Is this in the realm of framing a conversation? Because I've taught that before and learned to help lead people down a certain sales path, if you will, to at least establish a certain amount of rapport. Because it sounds to me like this is more like front end, faster, better technique.
One of the things I've found over the years, and this is so hard to convince a sales team of, I just convinced a company of it not long ago and their sales took off, but for some reason there's kind of a blocker here, is that if you ask the right questions or make the right empathetic statements with somebody, they'll lead the call all by themselves. I think as salespeople, we put in too much effort of slamming our product home and what we want them to do and how we want them to do it. When the reality is, if you take a vested interest of that person from the time they pick up and you say, I am so glad you picked up, I was looking forward to talking to you, it's amazing how that person will guide the conversation for you. Because if you take enough interest in somebody, eventually 80% of the people are going to come back and say, God, I've talked about myself for 10 minutes. What did you want to talk about? And at that point, their receptivity is at their height. In the first 2 minutes, when most salespeople make their pitch, receptivity is arguably at its lowest.
Like what you're hearing? Hit that subscribe button and learn how you can change how you're seen and charge what you're worth.
Yes.
So true. You haven't built that value yet. And, that's kind of utilizing the old terms that I was taught in sales way back in my media days, build the value, build the value. And I believe that's true. I believe you do. But I think you build value by showing somebody else their own value.
Correct.
First, right?
Yeah, show a lot of interest. My dad was a car salesman, and he used to always say, I can sell if they got kids, I can sell anybody anything. And he'd spend 30 minutes. They'd want to talk about the car, and he'd just talk about their kids, where they went to school, what their names were, what sports they played. The people kept asking questions about the car, and he'd ask another question about the kids. Like it was just, but he had that ability to build that rapport. What do you think is holding a lot of salespeople back from actually practicing that? Because, I've been on a kick here for about a year now with people like yourself that have super valuable products that teach people how to be better at sales, if you will. But, you're still hard to find a motivator for people to actually put that into play. You got any thoughts on what holds people back from learning this as a brand new reprogramming for how we just ought to deal with people, period?
I do. I think CRMs are misused a lot. And I'll give you an example. So a company will come to me and they'll say, we close 1 out of every 50 people. So in order to get 2 closes in a day, we make 100 calls. In order to get 4 closes in a day, I hire 2 salespeople to make that number of calls. And that's based on the averages from their CRM. But the staggering part to me is they use that as their predictor for the future. Mm-hmm. So let's continue making those 50 calls and make it a numbers game. Here's the part I don't see many people that grasp is nothing else in life is like that. There was a study put out by a British statistician that said that in order to meet your soulmate, your chance of doing it in a single day is 1 in 356. Yet how many of us go out there and say, I have to go out with 356 people before I meet them? I want to buy a loaf of bread, so I'm going to visit 19 stores before I'll pick my loaf of bread. So we use past poor performance as a future indicator. When we do that, we hamstring our sales reps by saying, okay, you're going to close 1 out of every 50. So they think, okay, then I'm just going to dial and hope for the best. And there's no built-in mechanism for getting better. I think as sales managers and CRM owners, a lot of times we hamstring our salespeople all by ourselves.
That's great. Oh, point.
Wow.
Great point.
And I want to relate this back to and draw the bridge between the two. I want to relate it to personal branding just for a moment, because we hear from a lot of people that, oh, well, it just takes too long to build a brand. I don't have time. I just need to go out and get some leads. Right. And that leads people to believe that time is a factor. And I tell them time is definitely not the factor in building a personal brand. First of all, you build it first, then you promote it. Right. But building a personal brand over time or growing that personal brand is a totally different concept to me. I look at it and say, okay, if I told you time was the major factor in the success of a personal brand, and you build your personal brand with us today, but you don't put it out there, 2 years from now, guess who's not going to have any success? And that's a 2-year time factor. So 2 years of time is not the success factor. It's the number of engagements. It's the number of impressions, the number of times you get that brand out there make a difference. But I'm going to go one more, thanks to Jake Stahl. Okay. I'm going to add one more to that. It's the quality of those of each engagement that builds that brand or grows that brand so much faster.
Yeah.
Because if I engage with one person, send over my logo or my bio or whatever, that's a different engagement than actually having the conversation with them, getting to know them, and dialing into, hey, can I help you? If I can help you, I'll share how I can help you. And really, that's what sales is about to me, is sharing how I can help you. But I love that context, Jake, because it made me think more about how we do things and how we teach things. People don't need to think about it's a numbers game and everybody's giving me all these statistics and I just fit inside that box of statistics. They need to think about, how can I change this landscape? How can I think about it totally differently? And that's really what you're bringing. So I love that. I learned a lot already. Do me a favor. Give me your definition of Chief Learning Officer.
So a chief learning officer comes in, and it's kind of the fancy name of saying that you come in and you head up training and development. So your training and development usually focuses on your sales force. And the onboarding program is, how do you get a salesperson from being in the debit column at 18,000 just to get them to walk through the front door to having a return on investment in a short period of time? The part that I build into that is there's a psychology to getting somebody acclimated to a company. And part of that is getting them to understand where they are in the structure, what happens with a customer before it gets to them and after it leaves them, and they understand their value in the whole process. So I develop onboarding programs to help people get up and running quicker. And then I use my psychology-based sales training program to get it so that when they're on the phone, one of my taglines is, I teach people how to have the perfect conversation.
Nice. Very good. So what type of clients are you best suited to serve?
My best clients are people that are usually 250 people or less, regardless of revenue or product. And ironically, they're newer companies. So usually my clients are 7 years old or less. And I always feel weird saying this because my largest client's been around since rocks were soft and they've got 1,500 people. But usually it's more in the startup realm that I do the best. And that's because they're at a stage where sales is still an art. At some point in every organization, sales becomes a process, and it was never meant to be that. It was meant to be an art form that you constantly have to redevelop and reconstruct to move with your demographic. There's no sales message that worked 5 years ago that still works today. That's got to mold to your customer constantly.
So true.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And so another takeaway right there is, out with the old, in with the new. Like, we need to be constantly working, no matter what we sell. We need to constantly be working on maintaining that as an art. Because like me personally, growing a real estate firm, my plan has never been to be the biggest real estate brokerage in the state or the city or anything like that. I just want the most successful agents, no matter how many I have. Right. 3 times the national average. And so I'm always looking and intrigued by how I can continue to keep it fresh for them, to keep sales an art, because it is definitely. And I'm glad you pointed that out. It always was, and so that's a really good takeaway. Really good point.
Yes. And I want to talk about, we, in the introduction of this podcast, we talked about, is it an art or is it science, right? And there is some science that goes into it a little bit as well.
A lot of it.
Talk about that for a moment, how that balances out the other side.
Yeah. So as you said in the beginning of the show, I developed the Adaptive Conversational Blueprint. And that blueprint says it's largely based in science of neurolinguistics. We react certain ways to certain things. There are certain words that are just paramount to use in a sales presentation because they elicit almost guaranteed responses. And when I say that, I don't mean it from a manipulative perspective.
Right.
I mean, they actually increase compliance on the other side. So part of my blueprint is we take neurolinguistic theory to develop trust and to develop a bond within the first couple of minutes with the customer. And then we use that to adapt to the conversation that takes place after it. I don't advocate for scripts. I don't advocate for a specific sales methodology. It's all about how can you adapt to the person on the other end of the phone. So what I teach is how to do that. So how do you learn to adapt to somebody in the first few minutes? And that's all based on science. It's stuff that has been studied over and over and over again. And the top social psychologists write amazing books about it. I read books on social psychology all the time because they're constantly coming up with new ways to message. And then you just work in with the psychology, which my background is in, of the individual on the other side. How do they make a decision? And how can you help them make the decision? Not influence it, but help them make it. Mm-hmm. I always do a 1-hour interview with a client before I get started because I just want to make sure that we're both a fit. And part of working with a customer is knowing whether you're a good fit or not, because you may not be. And studies have shown that if you refer somebody somewhere else, their fondness for you actually grows. They want to come back and talk to you, even though you've referred them away. And that's fascinating. And I think as salespeople, we don't often think of those terms. We think either buy from us or buy from no one.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
That is fascinating. I can see how that would happen, though.
Yeah. I mean, I've always believed and practiced in several ways that, saying no to somebody is very powerful. Like
it is.
They will, then all of a sudden, most of the time they become a chaser. Rather than you chasing them and it becoming very apparent that, you're salivating at no matter how you're acting, at this sale, I got to get this sale, and,
right.
And many times being more nonchalant about the situation and whether or not you're ever going to get paid or get them as a client goes so much further than, I just don't know if I can take you on or, what's wrong with me? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I want you, right? All of a sudden. So,
well, what characteristics, Jake, do you look for in the clients that have been most successful in working with you?
The characteristics are they have to be willing to try something new. They have to step away from sales methodologies. There's a lot of great ones out there, and please understand I'm not criticizing any of them. There's a lot of brilliant models like the Sandler method and the value-based selling model. I have respect for all of them. But once you get on the phone, a sales script tends to take away from your ability to adapt because you're so ensconced in that. Mm-hmm. So the companies that I work with are companies that are willing to say, hey, I'll try something different. We're young, we're hungry, we need to do something that's going to make a significant impact. And that has nothing to do with age of the people in the company. It has more to do with how young the company is and the size they are. I've worked with huge Fortune 500 companies, and it's just, there's no comparison between them and a young, hungry company that wants to make an impression.
Yeah, I would agree. It's something about the spirit of success and when a company's on a climb and you get that buzz going, and then all of a sudden everybody gets the buy-in of wanting to be a part of that I think just makes them moldable, and you can achieve great success if you can get that generated.
Yeah.
And it's the personal work you can do with people. Mm-hmm. If I have a sales team of 20, I can talk with them individually and coach them individually. But when you get into a sales team of, 2,000 or 3,000, I don't have that grace anymore. And then all of my communication is automated. So.
Plus, I think you tend to have more people in the room. The more people you have, the more people in the room you have that are already preconditioned and not willing to look at it differently.
Excellent point.
Yeah, because I know when I come from the media world, I spent about 18 years there, all in the sales side of things. And I know some of our most successful salespeople over all of those years were people who did not come from media. Because the people from media already had, if we recruited them from another media outlet, they already had those preconditioned perceptions,
right?
And they had already been taught to do things a certain way in the media world. But if you recruited them from outside that, they had fresh, open minds.
Yeah.
And I think too that may have a lot to do with why you love working with the newer companies so much, even though they may not be all young people, they're people coming in from a different mindset a lot of times. So that's
excellent point. That's dead on.
Yeah. So now, Jake, we're going to segue into a fun area that we like to end every podcast with.
Okay, so me and Tanya, we're both foodies. We love food, right? And so we'd love to know, number one, do you like to cook?
I do. I only can do certain dishes that are, equivalent to my expertise. But yes, I do like to cook.
Love it. Okay, what is, if you have a specialty or a favorite, what would it be?
This is going to sound really simplistic, but I make the world's best homemade pizza. I make my own dough. I do my own toppings. I love to do pizza. So I'll make a pizza where literally one slice is good enough for a meal.
Nice.
My slices of 8 cover 8 full people.
Nice.
We'll be there Thursday night. Is Thursday's pizza night? Maybe I should have asked that first. I love it. I find that if anybody likes to cook at all, and sometimes if they don't like to cook a lot, but they have most people have one signature dish that they think, okay, this is mine. I can bring this to every party, or I can do this at every cookout.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. Yeah, we're going to have to know some of your pizza secrets. Maybe we'll start another podcast for that.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So what's your favorite restaurant? If you're a foodie, where is the place that if you could go tonight, where would you go?
Oh, that's actually a great reverse question.
That is a great, I kind of know mine.
All right, well, go ahead.
Okay, so I spent 23 years in Columbus, Ohio, and one of the greatest restaurants I've ever been to is called G. Michael's. It's in it's in the German Village area. And I think it's fantastic. And in fact, Columbus, Ohio is really well known for being an independent restaurant area. So a lot of independent restaurants have flourished from there. The great restaurateur, Cameron Mitchell, came from Columbus, Ohio, and he's well known for his themed restaurants, and he has the Midas touch. Now, G. Michael's is not one of his restaurants, but it is an independent restaurant, and I just absolutely love it. I mean, I love a lot of restaurants, but that one for some reason came to mind.
No, that's a good one. Yeah, because she's taken me there before. Mm-hmm. It's a super good restaurant. So
yeah.
All right. And what about yours?
I have so many. I was a big steak eater until recently, and Tanya's weaned me off of red meat. Not completely, but we've agreed that I will just have my indulgences, once a quarter or so.
We have agreed.
Because she's right for health reasons and whatnot. But I always love Charlie T's in Orlando. It's a applewood fired grilled steak, 1,500 degrees, open flame over fruit wood, and it is insane good. I could name you literally dozens, but that's I would put that up there in my top 5 for sure.
Perfect. I'm heading to Orlando in May, so
there you go.
I will look up Charlie T's while I'm there.
Yeah. Yep. Jake, you'll have to come visit us sometime too, because one of the top 3 meals I've ever had in my life was actually cooked by Michael. And it was his lamb chops. Now we do an awesome Mediterranean dinner. We specialize in mostly Mediterranean food. My recipe specialty is ratatouille. That's my thing.
Never had it.
And it's just a roasted vegetable. It's a French dish, but it's roasted vegetables, and it's amazing, if I do say so myself. But Michael,
I would agree.
Yeah, but we both love cooking Mediterranean food. But his lamb chops are the best I've ever had in my life, including anything in the Mediterranean.
That's high praise.
It's very high praise. Yes,
that's how I got her. I just sit here. Just taste this lamb chop. You'll fall in love.
Hook, line, and sinker. Got me.
So invite me over for the quarterly red meat night. That's
okay. There you go.
That's done.
All right, Jake, tell everybody how they can get in touch with you if they want to work with you.
I am at 2 spots. You can find me on LinkedIn at Jake Stahl, or you can go to my website at jakestahlconsulting.com.
All right, we'll put that in the show notes. And Jake, it has been a pleasure.
True pleasure.
I've learned a lot today.
Thank you.
Thank you
for having me.
Ready to change how you're seen and charge what you're worth? If you're not getting enough opportunities to meet with ideal customers, or the prospects you're meeting with just aren't ideal, it's most likely your brand that's holding you back. So if you're a coach, consultant, or expert who is on the rise, you need our ultimate guide to a freedom-based brand. Download it free now at BrandFaceGuide.com.